Imagine waking up tomorrow with every modern safety net stripped away. No power, no clean water, and no stable foundation. For millions, the Earth itself is a lethal threat. In the rainforests of southeastern Papua, Indonesia, the forest floor is a meat grinder of disease and instability. High humidity creates the perfect breeding ground for malaria, while seasonal rains transform the soil into a drowning flood of mud. Below the canopy, snakes and unseen predators move silently through the undergrowth. Survival here requires leaving the ground entirely. The Korowai people build their homes 45 meters in the air, roughly the height of a 15-story building. Without harnesses or modern tools, they scale bare wooden ladders carved into tree trunks. Even for young children, this vertical ascent is a routine daily task. Staying on the ground invites infection or attack. In this environment, life is only possible through a permanent retreat into the trees. In Mali, that retreat is carved into the Bandiagra escarpment. The Dogon people live in villages clinging to the vertical rock of a 150-kilometer sandstone cliff. This wasn't a choice made for the view. Centuries ago, these cliffs served as a fortress against slave raids and regional wars. The plains below were exposed to attack. The sheer 150-meter drop provided the only reliable defense. Living on the edge of a void has shifted their definition of normal. Dogon children learn to run along narrow, crumbling ledges with steep drops just meters away. Every step demands a level of precision and focus that, over generations, has replaced the fear of heights with total spatial awareness. High in the Andes, the Uros people have abandoned the concept of solid ground entirely. They live in the middle of Lake Titicaca, floating on layers of woven reeds. Because reeds rot and dissolve in the water, their foundation is in a state of constant decay. Survival here is a cycle of relentless labor. Every few weeks, fresh reeds must be harvested and layered on top to prevent the entire community from sinking. For these cultures, safety is not a permanent location. It is a daily, physical commitment to rebuilding and navigating the impossible. For the Korowai or the Dogon, danger was a necessity. But some communities actively seek out the most hazardous geography on the planet for a different reason. In central Greece, the rock pillars of Meteora rise 400 meters above the valley. Perched atop these sheer, isolated needles of stone are ancient monasteries. In the 14th century, there were no stairs. Monks reached these peaks by being hauled hundreds of meters through the air, suspended in a wooden basket. A frayed rope meant certain death, yet they ascended anyway. They weaponized this isolation. By positioning themselves on the brink of a fatal drop, they severed their connection to the world and forced a state of absolute, daily dependence on their faith. In Ethiopia, that devotion was carved downward. At Lalibela, 11 churches were freed from the earth by removing thousands of tons of solid volcanic rock with basic hand tools. This wasn't construction in the traditional sense. It was excavation on an unimaginable scale. Workers spent decades chiseling into the earth to reveal buildings that remain monolithic blocks, still attached to the surrounding bedrock. The physical tax remains high today. Pilgrims must navigate narrow rock ledges and steep, unwaled trenches just to reach the church floors. In this context, hardship is the requirement. The more difficult the journey, the more the act of survival serves as proof of their belief. Beyond the jagged rocks and sheer drops, the most extreme tests of human endurance are invisible. In the Himalayas, Wagrokpa people live at elevations where the air contains 40% less oxygen than at sea level. Every daily task, farming, walking, or carrying supplies, requires a massive, continuous physical effort. Over centuries, their biology has shifted. They have larger lungs and a more efficient circulatory system. For the Brokpa, this thin, freezing air is not an obstacle to overcome, but a constant they have completely normalized. In the Hindu Kush of Pakistan, the Kalash people face a different pressure. Surrounded by a vast majority, their ancient language and religion are at risk of being erased. Their only shield is the environment. The brutal mountain passes and freezing winters that isolate them are the very things that protect their culture from disappearing into history. The Kalash have turned these brutal mountains into a sanctuary. They use the planet's harshest terrain to preserve an identity otherwise lost to modernization. We see all of these places as terrifying extremes: the high canopy, the cliff, the floating reed, and the void. But what we perceive as a nightmare of height and isolation has become a baseline reality. For these communities, constant risk is no longer a crisis. It's the background noise of life. Look at your own world. If you were stripped of your modern supports and placed on those cliffs or in that thin air, you would feel a paralyzing terror. But they do not. Faced with the impossible, would you find a way to make it your new normal? Or would you break?